All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to go over 7 types of beats to up your production versatility. Let's get into it. Okay, I'm here in Ableton and I have just 3 samples, a kick, a hat, and a snare, and we're going to make 7 different types of beats. Now, the first type of beat is boots and cats. You've probably heard of this before. It's the universal beat that everybody seems to know, and it's incredibly versatile. You'll hear this in clubs, but you'll also hear it in like sad indie music, which means we can play it at really fast tempos or we can play it slowed. So how do we make it? I'm going to keep my tempo at 120 here to start, and all we do is just kick, hat, snare, hat. And then we're going to select this region and duplicate it a bunch of times. We're going to loop this section here, and let's just take a listen. Okay, so that's kind of the club sound. If we want to slow it way down for like an indie song, I'm going to just cut this in half, go down to 60. And then you have your big washed guitar chords. You get the idea. So, boots and cats. Our second type of beat is 4 on the floor, and it's really simple. We just have a kick drum hitting 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll hear this in house music, you'll hear it in certain rock sections, and you'll also hear it in folk music. As for BPM range, I'm going to say anywhere from like 90 to 130. So I'm going to just start at 120 and just show you the 4 on the floor, and then we'll mess around with it a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4. Select it and duplicate it. So you probably already just recognize you've heard that before. Now, if we wanted to make this more of like a folk sound, all we do is just add like a clap and a tambourine on the off beats, and this is kind of the folk sound. Okay, cool. That's 4 on the floor. The next type of beat I am calling just a pop beat. I'm sure there's a more technical term for it, but it's what you hear in anything from Katy Perry to Dominic Fike. Now, for the BPM range of the pop beat, I'm going to say anywhere from 110 to 150. I'm just going to keep it in 120 while we make it. So I'm just going to start with the kick and the snare. And as you'll see in most of these beats, the snare hits on the 2 and the 4 the entire time. So we can just duplicate that to the end. And what really defines this pop sound is where the second kick goes. So instead of going here on the 3, we just nudge it forward. Now, there's all sorts of different variations we can do, so we'll just start throwing in kicks and see what we like. And for our hat, we can really just keep it simple and just have it go like this. Or we can go twice the speed. And we can really push this, like I said, like 150, you'll hear this sometimes. Kind of like a pop punk sound. Okay, so that is the pop beat. Next up, moving into the rap realm, we have boom bap. Now, boom bap is that old school hip hop style. It's usually really simple, it swings, and it doesn't change up much, so it really gives a chance for the lyricist to highlight their skills. So this is like the MF Doom type beat style. BPM range is a little more limited here. I'm going to say anywhere between 80 and 95, so let's just go with 85. Our snare is going to hit on the 2 and the 4. And for the kick, we're going to have it hit twice in the beginning. And we're going to just copy that. And then we're going to have another kick hit right there. And we can even make this swing a little more if instead of these 4 spaces, we make it 3. Also make this clip a little quieter. And select this. And again, with our hat, we can really do anything we want. That's kind of cool. Okay, so that's boom bap. Next up, we have the trap beat, which is the beat of our modern music paradigm. You hear it on hip-hop songs, R&B songs. You even hear it on country music now, which I'm not a huge fan of, but there's no denying that the trap beat has really defined pop music in the last decade. Now, these samples aren't ideal for trap, but we can still make the pattern. So for trap, the most common BPM is 144, but you can go anywhere from like 120, 125, all the way up to like 160, 170. I'm going to go 144 because that's the standard. And instead of our snare hitting on the 2 and the 4, we're going to make it hit half time. And then instead of going with the kick, I'm going to start with the hat because the hat in trap is really important. Another really common move is to double the time right there. And then another really common move is to have hat rolls. That might have been a little too fast. It sounds just kind of like robots. So, just going to copy that. And then for the kick, there's all sorts of cool things we can do. Whoops. Something like that. So that's kind of like a hard-hitting running one. We could also just keep it really simple. Like that. Okay, so that's trap. All right, next up is my favorite type of beat to make, and I'm calling this Amen, which is a shout out to the Amen break from the song Amen Brother by the Winstons. Now, this sound is the most sampled sound of all time, so it's really changed the course of music history, and this is what it sounds like. So when I'm talking about an Amen beat, I'm not going to recreate this exactly, but what I'm really going after is that snare pattern. And because this is just a snare pattern I'm going for, there's no specific BPM range. You can do so much with this sound, but it's definitely one that I use a lot, and it's a good one to learn. So I'm going to start with a kick and a snare. And again, we're going to have the snare hit on the 2 and the 4, but then we're going to get a little more complicated with it. Instead of these 4 bars, we're going to make it 3 to make it swing a little bit more. Add another 3 guy here. And so we can get super creative with the kick pattern. And again, with the hat, you can really do anything. I'm just going to start with simple, and then we'll do some spice. And it's just this nice, like, swinging beat. You can get really funky with it. Sounds great with guitar and bass. So this is probably the beat that I use the most. Lastly, we have Dembow, which is the reggaeton sound. Now, I'm just going to throw a hot take out there. I think that this beat is going to be the defining beat of the next decade. It's starting to be played a lot in clubs. You have artists like Bad Bunny who are really making reggaeton music mainstream, to the point where even artists like Drake are starting to make songs in this style, and it's just undeniably fun to dance to. So I might be wrong, but I think that this beat is just only going to get more and more popular, and it's super useful to have that knowledge. As for the BPM range, I'm going to go anywhere from 80 to 110, but usually in the 90 to 100 range is where I like to use it. So we're going to start with a 4 on the floor. And what really defines the sound is where the snare hits, and it's going to be here and here. And you hear that already, you're like, yo, let's dance. So I'm just going to copy that. And you can even add one here. Okay, so that's 7 types of beats and how to make them. We kept it super simple. I used the same 3 samples for each one, so I encourage you to find your own samples, mess around, see what feels good, and it can be a really cool exercise if you're feeling like you're making the same kind of beat over and over, to pick one of these styles that you may not normally gravitate towards and see what happens. With that being said, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week.